All right, let's jump right into this. We're looking at a white paper from a company called Calm Waves, and they're making a really bold claim. Our entire way of thinking about mental health care, especially for trauma, is basically upside down. This isn't about some new pill or a fancy new machine. It's about a new order, a new sequence of care.
And this quote, right here, this is the entire argument in a nutshell. It's saying that the way we do things now, talk therapy first, then maybe some meds, it's not based on what's most effective, it's just based on what we've always done. The playbook is just backwards. So what does this wrong order really look like out in the real world? And more importantly, what's the cost for the people who are actually trying to get help? The paper uses a really powerful example to break this down.
So let's get specific. Picture a veteran, finally home, but their nervous system is still wired for a war zone. They're not sleeping, relationships are falling apart, and they finally make that incredibly hard decision to ask for help. What does our system offer them?
Well, the first thing it offers is a long wait. On average, it's almost 42 days just to get that first appointment. Can you imagine struggling like that for over a month before you even get to start? But honestly, the real problem kicks in once the therapy actually begins.
For one of the gold standard treatments for PTSD, cognitive processing therapy, the dropout rate is just staggering. It's 40%. Let that sink in. 2 out of every 5 veterans who start this therapy, a therapy that asks them to recount their trauma over and over, they just can't finish it.
And this gets right to the heart of it. It's not the patient failing the therapy, it's the therapy failing the patient. You can't ask a nervous system that's screaming danger to sit calmly in a room and talk about the very thing that broke it in the first place. It's a physiological impossibility.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? The paper suggests a pretty radical reframe. What if, instead of asking people to talk their way into feeling safe, we helped them feel safe first so that then they could finally talk?
Now, this idea is really focused on a population dealing with what's called acquired dysregulation. It sounds clinical, but it just means your nervous system got knocked off kilter by life, by trauma, by injury, even by addiction. The point isn't the label. It's that the goal is simply to restore function. And this slide right here flips the entire script. The old model believes that talking leads to insight, which then eventually leads to feeling calm. The new model says, nope, you have to feel calm first. You have to regulate the body before the mind can even begin to have any kind of meaningful insight. Okay, so this is where it gets super practical. This is the how-to guide for institutions, for clinics, for anyone wondering how you would actually do this. A big idea is great, but a real, actionable protocol, that's a game changer. Let's get into the nuts and bolts. The whole protocol really boils down to 3 simple steps. First, you start with neuromodulation, using gentle technology like electrical signals or sound waves to directly calm the nervous system. No deep conversation needed. Second, after the person is in that calm, regulated state, you have a conversation. And third, and this is so important, what comes next is totally dependent on the person's own needs, not some rigid 12-week schedule. They've even mapped out the ideal session. And notice, it's not just 50 minutes of talking. It starts with a quick check-in. Then, the main event, 20 to 40 minutes of that direct nervous system regulation. And only then do you have a regulated conversation for 20 or 30 minutes. What practitioners are finding is that they get more productive work done in that focused 20 minutes than in an entire hour of the old model. Now here's what makes this so powerful for institutions. You don't need a PhD to run these sessions. With very specific training on the protocol, things like how to pick the right device, how to sequence the session, how to read the body's signals of regulation, and crucially, when to escalate to a clinician, this can be delivered by trained staff. That radically lowers the cost and blows the doors open on accessibility. And you've got to talk about the side effects. The comparison is pretty stark. On one hand, you have neuromodulation tools where the side effects are mild, temporary, and there's no withdrawal. On the other hand, common SSRIs can come with a whole list of issues, including a well-documented and often difficult withdrawal syndrome. It's a pretty clear difference. But if you need one single reason why this matters, it's right here in this table, because a treatment only works if people actually stay in it. A 5% dropout rate versus a 35 or 40% dropout rate, the numbers speak for themselves. This is an approach that meets people where they are. So, this all sounds good on paper, right? But is it actually working in the messy, real world? The answer is yes. This Regulate First protocol is already being used in some of the most challenging places imaginable.
Take this facility in Phoenix. It's for young adults who have aged out of the foster care system. Now, this is a population that, as one director put it, is completely therapied out. They have spent their lives talking, and they are done.
And yet, this one facility delivered over 3,000 sessions in 3 years. So what was the secret? It's that the protocol doesn't demand conversation. It just offers regulation. It works because it meets a fundamental human need first. And the proof just keeps piling up. It's working for justice-involved folks in Arizona. It's being deployed at a massive scale in El Salvador. They're running 40 sessions a day, and it's showing huge symptom reduction for retired NFL players dealing with traumatic brain injuries.
This is the simple phrase they use to explain the program to veterans, and it just captures the value perfectly. It offers a path to feeling better that doesn't force you to walk back through the worst moments of your life to get there.
So let's zoom out. If this model were adopted widely, what would actually change? The impact isn't just about one person in one session. It would create a ripple effect through the entire healthcare system.
For clinicians, their role evolves. They can become more of a guide because they aren't spending all their energy just trying to keep their client regulated. For institutions, it's a huge win. They can serve more people, more effectively, and for less money. And for individuals, the door to getting help gets a whole lot easier to open.
And it's so important to get this point. The breakthrough here isn't the technology. These kinds of tools have been around for decades. The real innovation, the missing piece of the puzzle, was the protocol, the proper sequence, and the training that makes it all work in the real world.
Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. For decades, we've built our mental health system around the power of words, the power of our story. But what if we've had it backwards all along? What if the real foundation for healing isn't finding the right words to say, but first finding a sense of safety in our own bodies?